Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something that's been buzzing around a lot lately, technology and mental health.
It really is everywhere you look, isn't it?
Totally, but especially for, younger generations, they've practically grown up online.
True. Digital natives, as they say.
Exactly. So we've got a ton of research, expert opinions, and even some real stories from people who are living this every day.
Should be interesting to see what they have to say.
Definitely. And one thing that kind of surprised me right off the bat, technology isn't necessarily the big bad wolf everyone makes it out to be.
Yeah, there's nuance to it for sure.
It can actually be a pretty powerful tool for good when it comes to mental well-being.
Oh, absolutely. The access it's providing to mental health resources is, well, it's pretty revolutionary.
How so?
Think about it. We've got therapy apps,
Right.
online support groups, even virtual consultations with therapists.
So it's like what, a therapist in your pocket kind of thing?
Pretty much available 24/7.
That's kind of wild when you think about it. But okay, isn't there a risk though? Like becoming too reliant on these apps?
I see where you're going with that.
Could it actually prevent someone from seeking out, I don't know, more professional help when they really need it?
That's a valid concern. It's really important to remember that these apps, they're not a replacement for traditional therapy,
Right.
but they can be a fantastic first step or a great way to supplement ongoing treatment.
Okay, so it's about using these tools strategically, not just jumping in blindly.
Exactly. And what we're seeing is that they're actually increasing people's self-awareness
Interesting.
and engagement with mental health care in general, which, can lead to better outcomes overall.
That makes sense. All right, so let's get into specifics. How is technology actually helping people, like right now? Real life examples.
Okay, well, take Sarah, for example. She's a college student who started using the BetterHelp app during exams.
Super stressful time.
You said it. Traditional therapy just wasn't an option for her.
Yeah, I can see that. Too expensive.
Yeah, and time-consuming too. But with the app, she could message a therapist whenever she needed.
On her own schedule.
Exactly. Huge for a busy college student.
Absolutely. I bet a lot of young people are in similar situations.
We're seeing that a lot, yeah. And then there's Mark. Found a Facebook support group, people dealing with depression. He said it was a total game changer for him.
In what way?
Just made him feel less alone, like, he wasn't the only one struggling.
That sense of community can be so important.
It really can. Especially with something like depression. So isolating.
Definitely. So technology, when it's used right, can actually build those connections.
It's all about using it the right way, yeah. And it's not just these big platforms either. We're also seeing really cool AI-powered tools pop up.
Like what?
Wobot, for example.
Wobot, yeah. Isn't that like a chatbot therapist?
That's the one. And it goes way beyond just basic responses. It uses actual cognitive behavioral therapy techniques.
Whoa, seriously.
Yeah, offers personalized support. And get this, it can actually make mental health care more engaging, like interactive exercises and stuff.
That's kind of cool. Almost like a game, but for your mental health.
Yeah, in a way. So definitely blurring the lines between technology and therapy.
All right, but let's flip the coin here. We can't ignore the negative impacts. There's a lot of talk about technology being bad for our mental health, and for good reason.
Definitely a darker side to all this, no doubt.
So what's at the top of the list?
Comparison culture on social media.
Yeah, the classic.
It's hard to escape, right? You scroll through your feed, everyone's living these perfect lives, and you start to feel
Anxious.
anxious, inadequate, like you're just not good enough.
It's like this constant need for validation.
Totally. And one user we talked to put it perfectly. They said, and I quote, "After an hour on Instagram, I feel like my life is dull and meaningless compared to everyone else's."
Ouch.
Right. That feeling, though, it's so common, and it can be really damaging if you let it fester.
Definitely. It's like everyone's presenting this curated version of themselves online. No one's posting about their bad days.
Exactly. It's all highlights, all the time.
And then there's the fact that technology makes it so hard to disconnect.
Ugh, tell me about it.
Work emails, social media, it follows you everywhere.
It's like you're always on, no time to just be.
And that can lead to some serious burnout.
Stress, overwhelm, the whole 9 yards.
And then, of course, there's digital addiction, which, let's face it, is a real thing.
It's a real struggle for a lot of people.
That urge to constantly check your phone, even when you know it's interfering with your life.
And yet you still do it.
Distracted, guilty, but you can't stop.
We talked to one user who actually used the word trapped to describe their relationship with their phone.
Trapped. Wow, that's powerful.
Isn't it? And it really gets to the heart of addiction, that feeling that you just can't break free even though you know it's not good for you.
So, like, what's happening in the brain that makes it so hard to resist that urge to just put the phone down?
It all comes down to dopamine, those quick hits of pleasure we get from likes, notifications, new messages. Our brains are wired to crave that stuff.
It's like a reward system.
Exactly. And it keeps us coming back for more, even if the feeling is fleeting.
We get addicted to the feeling itself, not even the actual content sometimes.
That's exactly it. And that's where it starts to get really dangerous because, we're training our brains to need that instant gratification.
So when we don't get it,
Well, real life, it doesn't work that way. So we're setting ourselves up for disappointment.
makes total sense. So we're essentially training our brains to crave instant gratification online, then getting thrown back into the real world where things just don't work that fast.
Right. It's a tough adjustment for some people. And this is where digital addiction and that comparison culture we were talking about earlier,
Oh, yeah.
they really start to feed off each other, impacting mental health even more deeply.
Okay, I'm curious about that connection. Tell me more.
Think about it. The more time you spend online, the more you're exposed to those, perfect lives and curated images, just fuels that cycle of inadequacy.
It's like a downward spiral.
Yeah.
You feel bad, so you go online to escape, but then you just end up feeling worse.
Sadly, yeah, a lot of people find themselves stuck in that loop. And it creates this, competitive mindset.
Competitive how?
You feel like you have to constantly prove yourself online. We had another user tell us they were terrified of being forgotten if they didn't post something impressive.
Oh, wow. So there's this constant pressure to perform, create this perfect online persona that may not even be real.
And it leads to this weird paradox. You can feel incredibly lonely even though you're constantly connected online. Those connections, they often lack depth.
It's like we're trading real connections for virtual ones, but then ending up empty.
Exactly. And this is especially worrisome for younger generations. They're growing up in this digital pressure cooker.
Gen Z.
Gen Z, yeah. The lines between online and offline are basically non-existent for them.
They're digital natives, like you said before.
Yeah.
So technology, it's just woven into the fabric of their lives, which, like you said, comes with its own benefits and challenges.
Absolutely. And the stats are pretty eye-opening. 70% of Gen Z experience anxiety related to social media.
70%, that's huge.
It is huge. And it's not just the sheer amount of time they're online either. There are other factors at play.
Like what?
Well, there's FOMO, the fear of missing out. Constantly seeing these real-time updates makes you feel like you're always behind.
Like everyone else is having more fun than you, even if it's not true.
Exactly. And then you've got the pressure to build this perfect online persona. They're constantly curating their lives for social media. That's got to be stressful.
No kidding. And then there's cyberbullying,
Hmm.
online harassment.
All contributes to the problem.
And these are young people whose brains are still developing, right? They're more vulnerable to these negative experiences.
Absolutely. And on top of all that, they're spending a ton of time online. Like the average Gen Z person is clocking over 10 hours of screen time daily.
More time in the digital world than the real world.
It's pretty crazy when you think about it. And of course, all that magnifies the potential downsides we've been talking about.
The anxiety, the comparison, the addiction.
It all gets amplified. And it's not just about age either. Gender and cultural background, they play a huge role in how technology impacts mental health.
I was just going to ask about that.
For instance, did you know that almost 50% of women aged 18 to 29 have experienced online harassment?
That's a scary thought.
It is. And it makes you wonder if women are just experiencing the downsides of technology more intensely than men.
Well, the stats certainly seem to point in that direction.
They do. Women are also more likely to be targets of body shaming and negative comparisons online.
So it's not just the technology itself, it's how different groups are experiencing it and the unique challenges they face as a result.
100%. And then you layer on cultural norms surrounding mental health and technology use, and it gets even more complex.
Give me an example.
In some cultures, there's a big stigma around seeking help for mental health issues.
Which could make it harder to access resources, even online ones.
Exactly. And then in other cultures, there might be intense pressure from family to maintain a certain image online.
So it's this whole intricate web of factors, age, gender, culture.
It all shapes how we experience technology and ultimately how it affects our mental well-being.
Sounds like we're only scratching the surface of this whole thing,
We are, but luckily we're starting to understand the nuances a lot better and what we can do to mitigate the risks.
which is what we'll be digging into next time, right?
That's right. Next time we'll be talking solutions, practical strategies for navigating the digital world and protecting your mental health. Stay tuned.
Shan't wait. See you all in.
Welcome back, everyone. So last time, things got kind of, well, heavy.
Yeah, we went deep into how technology can mess with our mental health.
All the good, bad, and the just plain ugly.
Yeah.
Especially for Gen Z. It's like they're constantly bombarded with all this digital stuff. It's tough out there for young people navigating this digital world.
No kidding. But now let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about solutions. What can we actually do to protect our mental health in this digital age?
Well, the good news is there's a lot we can do, a lot that's in our control.
That's good to hear. So where do we start?
It all begins with mindfulness, being more aware of how we're using technology.
So not just ditching our devices completely, because let's be real, who can actually do that?
Exactly. It's not about going off the grid entirely. It's about making conscious choices, forming healthier habits.
So instead of like mindlessly scrolling for hours, we become more intentional about how and when we engage.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance.
Easier said than done. Right.
It can be. Everyone's ideal balance is going to look different, of course, but there are some universal strategies that can help us create a healthier relationship with tech.
Okay, I like the sound of that. So what are some things our listeners can start doing, like today, to reclaim some of that mental peace?
One of the most effective things is setting boundaries. Think of it like budgeting. But instead of money, we're managing our attention.
Attention budgeting, I like that.
So maybe you set daily limits for certain apps, like social media or games, or designate specific times of day as tech-free zones.
It's so easy to get sucked in and lose track of time when you're scrolling.
Oh, tell me about it.
Are there any tools out there that can help with that? Like to actually keep track of how much time we're spending on our devices?
Tons. Lots of great apps designed specifically for that. They track your usage. Some can even block distracting apps during certain hours, like a digital accountability partner.
Cool. I need to check those out.
And you can always use those built-in features on your phone, too. Setting downtime schedules or using Do Not Disturb more strategically.
Oh, yeah.
Little things can make a big difference.
I actually tried a digital detox a while back. No phone after 8 p.m. for a whole week. Honestly, I was skeptical at first, but
Gotta go.
it was amazing. Incredibly refreshing.
That's what I hear from a lot of people. Detoxes are great for hitting the reset button. You break free from that constant need to be connected and reconnect with yourself, even just for a few hours, or a day, a weekend, whatever feels right.
Yeah, you realize how much technology is actually controlling your life when you step away from it.
It's eye-opening for sure, and the benefits go way beyond just reducing stress and anxiety. Sleep improves, creativity gets a boost. You're more present in those real-life interactions.
So it's not just about avoiding the negative, it's about creating space for the positive too.
100%. And that leads to another important strategy, cultivating those offline relationships. Make time for face-to-face connections, coffee dates, game nights, walks in the park, whatever. Just get together in person.
Because those real-life connections, those are powerful. They're an antidote to all that loneliness and isolation that can come with too much technology.
Exactly. They remind you that real life is happening out there, beyond the screen.
Speaking of the digital world, what about curating our online environment?
Oh, that's a big one. Think of it like cleaning out your closet. You get rid of the things that don't serve you and make space for the stuff that sparks joy. It's the same idea with your digital space. Take a look at who you follow on social media.
Are they inspiring you? Making you laugh?
Teaching you something new.
Or are they just triggering negative comparisons, making you feel bad about yourself? Because it's so easy to get caught up in that, right?
Way too easy.
We forget that what we see online is just a highlight reel, not the whole picture.
Yeah, it's like everyone's presenting this perfect, airbrushed version of themselves.
Exactly. So be mindful of who and what you're letting into your digital space. Unfollow those accounts that make you feel inadequate.
And replace them with.
Seek out content that uplifts you, makes you laugh,
Yeah.
teaches you something new. Surround yourself with those virtual cheerleaders instead of the digital downers.
I love that analogy, like decluttering your social media feed. It's spring cleaning for your mind. Exactly. It's an ongoing process, but so worth it. It's a powerful way to make social media a more positive source in your life. And last but not least, let's not forget about self-compassion.
Self-compassion. That's huge, especially with everything we've been talking about.
It is. We've been talking about comparison culture and how it can make us feel like we're not good enough. But everyone struggles with this. It's important to remember that.
We're constantly bombarded with these images of perfection that are just, well, unrealistic and unattainable.
Exactly. So be kind to yourself. Acknowledge that you're doing the best you can. Don't beat yourself up if you have a bad day or make a mistake. We're all human. We're all on our own unique journeys.
It's about silencing that inner critic and practicing self-acceptance, being as kind to ourselves as we are to our friends and loved ones.
Exactly. Those curated online personas, they rarely reflect reality. Everyone has flaws. Everyone has struggles. That's what makes us human.
Okay, so to recap, we've got all these awesome strategies: setting boundaries, curating your digital environment, taking those digital detoxes, prioritizing those real-life connections, and practicing self-compassion. A whole toolkit for building a healthier relationship with technology.
And remember, it's not about becoming a technophobe or anything. It's about becoming a more conscious user, more intentional.
Using technology to enhance our lives, not detract from them.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
Be patient with yourself. Experiment with different things and see what works best for you.
Because at the end of the day, it's about creating a digital life that supports your well-being, allows you to thrive both online and offline. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to ponder. We've explored a lot in our deep dive into technology and mental health, from how tech can be this awesome tool for connection and support, but also, bring on anxiety, comparisons, even addiction. It's complex.
Definitely not a simple issue, but we've given everyone some good strategies to work with, right?
We have. For a healthier, more mindful relationship with all our devices. Setting boundaries.
Curating that online world, taking detoxes, so important.
And of course, prioritizing real-life connections. Can't forget those. Plus that self-compassion. We all need a dose of that.
For sure. But before we wrap up completely, I think a good question to leave everyone with is, because ultimately, this is about each of us
Deciding how technology shapes our lives, our well-being. Couldn't agree more.
It's about taking ownership of that digital experience.
Love that. Okay, so the question for everyone listening is, how do you think technology is impacting your mental health? The good and the bad, no sugarcoating it.
Yeah, get honest with yourself. What patterns do you see in your own tech use? Anything you want to change?
What steps can you take, like starting today, to build a digital life that truly supports you, your well-being? Is worth thinking about.
It is. And maybe even talk about it with people, friends, family, even your kids.
The more we have these conversations, the more we understand this whole thing, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And that's how we'll figure out how to navigate it in a way that actually benefits everyone.
And look, it's not about getting to some perfect tech life balance overnight. That's not realistic.
Nope. It's a journey. Ongoing awareness, trying things out, adjusting as we go, and being kind to ourselves along the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Right.
Thanks to everyone for joining us for this deep dive into technology and mental health. Hope it's been insightful.
And maybe got you thinking a bit differently about your own digital life.
Exactly. That's what we're here for. Until next time, everyone, stay curious, stay mindful, and keep exploring.